Thank you. Hi, everyone. Hi. Good morning. Good morning. I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey today. Muse is a very broad term. It can be. But we're going to take it from a culinary perspective. A muse, by definition, is a person or personified force who is a source of inspiration for a creative artist. So let's go to the culinary side. Some of you may know this word. Amuse-bouche, en français, means to please the mouth, right? To please the mouth, or a French term which means a little bit of food which is served before a meal or in between to stimulate the appetite. Oftentimes you may go to like little fancy things and they give you this little something to put in your mouth and it's weird and you're like, But then you're like, I think I want to eat more food. So that becomes an amuse-bouche. I often get frustrated by these little tiny bits of food, but it's such as life. I don't know whose things these are, sorry. All right, so today I want to talk to you about essentially my perspective in regards to food being our identity. Our identity is ingrained through our journeys, our stories, our culture. Food is a reflection of our memories painted in our palates, our history and recipes passed down in moments of bonding, cultivated around the pot. Ingredients often trigger recognizable things. Oftentimes when you see something, you'll go, my grandmother used to make that. Or I remember my auntie used to do this kind of way. I want to give you kind of a history lesson on food, as you know it in the United States, like typical American cuisine, where it came from, who it came from, and how these identities have been silenced and kind of been stolen. So I'll take you on that first course. I have a little video for you.
Culinary historian Michael Twitty has made a name for himself, touring the country to lecture about Southern food traditions. His new book, The Cooking Gene, is out today. It explores the history of cuisine in the American South by focusing on the people who laid the foundation for it, enslaved Africans. Twitty is currently on a teaching residency in Colonial Williamsburg, Virginia. Dexter Thomas joined him there for a meal.
Hey, ladies. Hey, gentlemen. What's going on? Yeah, shut up. You will be great. Black folks weren't allowed to have hogs. Weren't allowed to have cattle. But chickens, guinea fowls come from Africa. Those weren't in control of enslaved Africans. These chickens represent more than just a stereotype of black folks and fried chicken. It represented empowerment.
All right, so let's talk about the African diaspora in Americas. America wouldn't have a lot of things if it wasn't for the slave trade in the sense of food. Seeds, grains were brought to America and to the South American areas because slaves needed to eat. They needed to be strong, so the masters would bring certain things in order for them to grow because they didn't know how to cultivate them. For example, rice. A lot of people think that rice came from South America. Rice got to South America from Africa. Another thing is, which is an interesting fact, which is Coca-Cola. A lot of people don't realize that slaves chewed cola leaves in order to stimulate themselves to keep working long days. Other types of grains, a lot of spices that you know, they all came from Africa. The one thing that we weren't allowed to have and to own was the intellectual property on how we came to the cuisine as we know it. Black folk at that time was not allowed to own not allowed to own hogs, cattle. So we oftentimes get these stereotypes of black people like chicken, right? That's all we could have was chicken. That was it. We liked watermelon because that's all they brought over for us to have was watermelon, different things like I have here like okra, beans. So working through some of that and realizing that our culture is often everybody's culture. I have another little snippet real quick.
Place of subversion.
Okay, because you go in there and they're expecting something.
Yes, and sometimes they don't get what they want, and it hurts their feelings, and they're butthurt. But a lot of people who I deal with are conservative white folks who actually hear me talk, and they come to new conclusions. And I'm proud of that. We're very aware of certain stereotypes, but get this. They sold chickens and sold vegetables so they could buy their husband's freedom. You understand me?
I guess that's what I want to know is, who is this good for?
Everybody. I want everybody at the same table. I want the African American person who wants to kind of figure out what their heritage is, to sit next to the white person who goes, you know, I'm really curious and respectful of the African American food tradition, African tradition. I want to learn more about that. I want them to sit next to me.
All right. So in thinking about a few things, I'm kind of going to prepare something for you briefly. Thinking about a few things, daggone it, I might have to get a guy to open this jar. Hold on. Hold on. Shoot. All right. You ever seen a jar of grease in your grandparents' house? Yeah. It's usually lard of some sort. There we go. Animal fat, almost always. And you always have a seasoned skillet, right? Grandparents would never, my grandparents would never have a skillet that wasn't oiled for these reasons. In the interim, I'm just gonna be making a few things. Some things that we often think that came from other places, like beignets. On average, where do you think they came from? Right, they came from Nigeria. Okay? They came from Africa. Things like stews, okra, jambalaya, a lot of those things we kind of had to create here with the sources that we have, but even things like potato chips, a lot of first instances of these things that we know as snacks and American cuisine, they came from slaves. For instance, there was a slave named Hercules, George Washington's head chef, was touted as one of the best chefs in America. There's another slave named, this is Hercules. There was another one that I couldn't find a picture of. Sally Hemings' brother was the first French-trained chef. He was Thomas Jefferson's slave. Thomas Jefferson flew him to Paris, and he was one of the first French chefs trained in America. Emmeline Jones, who was a slave for President Garfield, Arthur, and Cleveland, she was actually a free slave. She developed dishes like crab salad, different things with grits. She developed a potato chip. A lot of these recipes we don't have as they wrote them down because they were taken and renamed in someone else's name. You would have, because you didn't own your intellectual property, I'm speaking in terms of today. If I come up with a recipe and I don't file the proper paperwork to say that it's mine, somebody else can just make it and print it and do whatever. So this often happened with a lot of people in that time. They just, these things just kind of got lost in translation. So part of us is understanding our history and understanding small things. Mac and cheese, they're not just black food. You know what I mean? I'm being real with you. It's not just black food. It's everybody's food. It's because it's become a part of the American cuisine that we created a long, long time ago. I have another little snippet for you real quick.
Food is more than just, chicken and macaroni and cheese and greens and stuff. It's quite elegant. It was the first American cuisine to really draw from the whole planet. You had ingredients from Southeast Asia, ingredients from the Middle East, ingredients from Europe, West Africa, Central Africa, East Africa, all combined in our cooking. Try that.
All right. So, really quickly, for an example, black-eyed peas, okra. I personally don't like okra by itself. I think it's kind of slimy, right? But if it's fried right, it's cool. So what I have is a very simple preparation. You didn't have a lot of ingredients. So I have black eyed peas that I've mashed up, right? I put a little bit of onion, a little bit of okra. And so what you're gonna have is this really nice little fritter. But these are things that you would have to just kind of put together just on the fly, just so you can have, simple sustenance, because a lot of meat was not available to you. All right, so I'm gonna let this kind of put together. I might have something for y'all to taste at the end. Don't tempt me. Hold on a second. So, and these by and large are vegetarian. I mean, I do have a little bit of egg in here as a binder, but you can make these vegan. And it really is black eyed peas, okra, salt, pepper, a little bit of garlic, and onion. Super simple. All right. So now we're gonna head to the second course. Okay, my guy is all the way over there. I'm waiting for him. This is my great-great-grandfather, Andrew Sims. This is legit my great-great-grandfather, okay? Born in Spalding, Georgia. He was a free slave. He owned quite a bit of land in Georgia, like right outside of Griffin, Georgia, which is about, if you're taken from Atlanta, is about 45 minutes from Atlanta. All right, so this is my first example of when you're thinking about where do you pull your innate abilities and feelings. I think about my grandparents, my great-great-grandparents, because I don't know why I like to cook. I don't know why I like to, heal people through certain properties. But in understanding their story, I know that my past life and my energy is ingrained in that ancestral story. Second slide. This is his son, Sam Sims. If you knew my dad, you know that he looked just like my dad. But this is my grandfather's father. Again, owned a farm, sharecropper, tended to land, sold quite a bit of property during the day, and kind of went through the trade era in Georgia. Next slide. This is actually my grandfather. So a lot of people don't have these type of things. I can't tell you where in Africa my grandparents came from, my great-grandparents came from, but at least I can tell you from here, right? My grandfather and I share an interesting story. Him and I were born on the same day. He actually passed away on my daughter's birthday. So it is one of those things that him and I, we had an unsaid thing. My grandfather was known as Doc. He would take guys, they would come to his back door, and he would make salves for them when they had kind of STDs around the time. But my grandfather was a medicine man. He was a medicine man. He would put stuff together, he would pull it from his garden, and that's how he got the name Doc. And he would just mash it up, give it to you, just tell you put it on your little stuff, and hopefully you'll be better in the morning. That's the beginning of the stories of my grandfather. My grandfather actually started one of the oldest construction companies, black-owned, in Columbus, that still exists through my father. And I do owe a lot of entrepreneurship and ingenuity to him, because he really kind of set the tone for us. Next. This is me, my parents. This is my mother, this is my father. This is little Nikki. And I think this is oddly enough at the Ohio State Fair right here, right? My father is in the construction business. My mother is she's in the healthcare business. But my mother and father are completely different people. Like randomly, I don't even know how they hooked up, right? I was like, how did they? My mother is like queen, earth, loving. My mother fosters dogs. She probably has 12 dogs in her house right now. And my father he's a golfer. He's very straight. on the narrow in the sense where he's a man's man, you know what I mean? He takes very hard angles sometimes. But I've taken from both of them. They drove me to kind of find myself in certain spaces. My mother wanted me to be a doctor. She wanted me to be a neurosurgeon, actually, which is like really the max. I got to college and was like, yeah, so no. I was like, what's it gonna take to be like a pediatrician? Okay, what about just like a general doctor? And then I settled into pharmaceutical sciences, right? Well, my father, he just wants me to not be broke, right? So he's like, I don't care what you do, just do it well. So, and part of that, I had to figure out where I wanted to be. Like, working in CVS was just not the answer for me. Because I'm in this box, I'm in this little space, and I can't really create, I can't expound upon, and then I'm dealing with sad stories every day. I'm dealing with seniors who can't get prescriptions because of Medicaid. So I decided to say, you know what, I would like to do something that actually satisfies my soul, and maybe I can help somebody else. So I became a chef. It really was kind of like by happenstance. I had a couple sorority sisters that was like, yeah, you know, you could really cook, right? And I was like, I think I can. You know, I'd have people over and I'd cook little things for them. And I was like, shit, I got this. I'm gonna go ahead and just keep it moving. And then I kind of propelled myself forward. Next slide. All right, I just recently lost my grandmother. So this is kind of like one of those moments that I realized when I started to learn how to cook was because I used to just sit and just watch my grandmother on this little step stool in the kitchen. She makes crazy pound cakes. She was known for the pound cakes. She would freeze them. The freezer would be stacked with pound cakes. Church would just be like, we need a pound cake. She had one ready to go. So this is her and I making a pound cake. This is her first experience. She was like, what is this organic sugar? I really don't like it. And we're using whole wheat flour. And she's used to like cake sift flour, which is like bleached flour. So she was a little bit turned off, but we worked through it. This is kind of a therapy thing we were doing because she had stroke. And I just sat her down and said, let's make a cake. So, and then this is me and my grandmother at the end, right here. Oh no, that's the cake. And then fast forward to that, which is the last slide. Yeah, that's me and Big G. My grandmother was like 6 foot. So she was a cool lady. So, and she really valued the path that I took because she knew that it was something that was very near to me and that I can excel at. Because she would just ask me every now and then, she's like, you still cooking? I'm like, yes, Grandma, I'm still cooking. All right, the last course. Third course. This is probably what you all know me for. So, in my walk and my path, I work with a lot of celebrities. I tour with celebrities. I tour with DJ Khaled. I've done major and big events with the Migos, with Snoop Dogg, Dave Chappelle. I mean, a lot of folks. That's just kind of the circle that I'm in, kind of by happenstance, but I remember when I got into the food industry, I was told to find a void and to fill it. So I took the celebrity chef route because they need food too, and they typically have a decent amount of money that can pay for services. All right. So let's just fast track to now. So it kind of like, I might have a cool job, low key, a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I like what I do, I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, I'm in an industry right now that is fairly new, which is the cannabis industry. Infusing food in cannabis is, it's a thing that not a lot of people can do. And not a lot of people can do it the right way. And not a lot of people can do it to the point where you are taking care of people and wellness and health and making sure that they're okay. It is a recreational thing, of course, but I do have a vested interest into making sure that you still feel okay. Because of the studies I've had in pharmacy and working with other folks in the industry, food scientists, I do really try to make sure that we are properly dosing people in these events. So I don't take them lightly. But they're pretty kick-ass if you are old enough to ever come to one, okay? Next week we're in Oakland. So next week we're doing an event called The Pregame, right before Rolling Loud Festival. And that will be with a bunch of athletes in cannabis. We're working with NBA athletes. Gary Payton is one of our hosts. Brian Shaw, who is an assistant coach for the Lakers, who's a retired Laker, is also a host. And we're gonna do some pretty cool things, but we are actually taking athletes, legislators, folks in the industry, putting them in the same room. Let's talk about how we can get the NBA to drop testing for cannabis. Let's talk about how we can get the NFL stop testing for cannabis. Randomly enough, a lot of people don't know, the NHL does not test for cannabis. The MSL does not test for cannabis. Only where there's a cluster of black men that are still testing for cannabis. I'm gonna be real with you. So now we have a conversation. I am actually working with a friend of mine who is the first felon to own a dispensary in the state of California, actually part of the equity program. So we're kind of creating this campaign. We have tapped a lot of media for postings, but it's gonna be pretty dope. Other than that, we do travel everywhere, and we go to every legal market doing these events, and they become a pretty cool thing. We often are, tasked with things that and people that ask us. Let me rephrase this. As it pertains to Muse, my Muse is, again, the untold stories. That's my first part, and the ancestry part. The second part is, it really is the work that I'm doing and making sure that people are educated and they're aware and they can still have a good time about it. As Americans, we're all family, right? We're all here and we all gotta figure out we just gotta figure this shit out. And I want all of us to be able to have these experiences and not be caught up on particulars. You know what I mean? The one thing that I've found out about food is it brings everybody around the table. The one thing that I found out about a joint, it brings everybody around the table. The one thing that I found out about these things is the age it doesn't matter. The race, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters because we're able to just come around and just be one at some point, okay? Momentarily, I do have snacks for you guys. Replicated these black bean cakes. But I put a little treat in there for you. It's non-psychoactive. There's some hemp oil in there. just to have a little even day. But there's no cannabis actually in there. There's just hemp oil. So hopefully that's okay with you guys. You can pass on it if you want. So I think that's about it. I mean, I want you guys, of course, to always, I'm an easy person to talk to. I'm one of those type of people. If you have a question about food, cannabis, other than personal stuff about celebrities, I got you. You know what I mean? I'm a Columbus. I'm not a native of Columbus. I'm from Cincinnati originally, but I live here by Franklin Park, so I'm here. You know what I mean? I've been dedicated to the city for a while. I mean, I have to go a lot, but I'm often here. So, thank you.